In this episode, I'll show you how to get started with Azure Bicep. So welcome back to the channel. Sorry, I've been a little MIA of late. As you can see, I've moved apartment, so now I have this little office/studio setup. So the plan now is to start shooting more content more frequently. I've set a little goal of trying to hit 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year. There's a lot of time and effort that goes into making these videos. So I'd appreciate it if you could show your support by liking, subscribing, and sharing the videos. So let's get started. So what is Azure Bicep? Azure Bicep is a domain-specific language which uses declarative syntaxing to deploy Azure resources. Bicep is basically a transparent abstraction layer over ARM templates. So basically it reduces the complexity and improves the authoring experience of ARM templates. So what does this mean? Basically, in short, you can use Azure Bicep to build out ARM templates.
I didn't do that!
I think this is inevitable. I think it's definitely a step in the right direction by Microsoft, especially with the mass adoption of DevOps practices and the big emphasis of efficiency, automation, infrastructure as code that's currently being led by Terraform. I think Azure Bicep definitely has its perks. You know, ARM templates are native to the Azure platform, which also means you don't have to wait for anything to be released or created, such as Terraform providers to be updated. So let's get started and into the demo. Okay, so before you get started, obviously you need an Azure subscription. And then you need to install PowerShell as well as the Azure CLI. And once you've installed that, there's two ways to install Azure Bicep. So you can install Azure Bicep using the Azure CLI, or you can download the standalone installer. So I've got both of them linked here. So choose whichever way you want to install it. And then lastly, you need to install the VS Code extension. It's basically just called Bicep. Okay, so once you've done that, let's talk about how you create your first Bicep file. So I don't know if there's a standard on, what to call it and everything else. So I've basically just called it main.bicep. So there's two ways that you can do it. So I'll just walk through the first way. So I've got it all documented here as well. So let me delete this file. Let's create a demo file again. So I'll expand this out. And let's go up. So we're just going to call this main.bicep. So as you can see, I have the little bicep symbol. I'm already connected to Azure as well. So you still need to do the AZ login. I've got that documented below as well. So what you need to do is you basically declare a resource. And then you give it a name. So we'll just call this my storage account. And then you can see here that the IntelliSense kicks in and it basically tries to autocomplete. So what I'll do is type in storage, and you can see it has storage accounts, and then I'll just tab it. So you can see here it's now referring to the version of API. So I'll just go with the latest and tab that too. And then basically you just go equals. And then you can basically see that there's an option that basically has required properties. So the easiest option is obviously to select that, and that will tell you basically all the required attributes that you need. So you can basically just populate these. So obviously if you wanted to know what to complete, there's a link there to ARM templates. So that gives you the actual files itself. But something new here now is I've got Bicep. It actually shows you everything that you can put in and the expected values. But if you go back to the documentation, so there's option 2. So I came across this. There's actually a shortcut where you can type in res dash and then the resource that you're trying to create. And it gives you a pre-populated code base, I guess, which makes it super easier. Okay, so if I type in res dash storage, you can see there it's already found it. So if I tab that, and you can see that. So that's actually giving me everything. And it makes it a lot easier to sort of understand. You can see here it's already given it an object name. And then it's basically using the same API, but it looks like it's using a different version. So obviously these these coded values are specific to this one, so it may not work for a newer version here. So you can see here, all I need to do is give it a name. And you can see this is Bicep syntaxing, which will basically use the location of the resource group provided. So that's a native declaration, or a native call, I guess, to a resource. And yeah, so that's basically it. So let me take this out. So if we give it a name, storage account 1. So we save that. Okay, so there's 2 ways that you can call Azure Bicep. Now, if you can use basically the AZ command, which is AZ Bicep, but then you need to basically type build -- file, and then it's the main bicep file, and that will basically build it. So you can see here, I've now got a JSON file, and it's basically put in everything that I've just declared. Now, if you go AZ Bicep and then just go help, you can see here that there's actually a few more commands here. You've got build, decompile, install, list versions, and upgrade. So upgrade is a key one, because if I just use Bicep and go help, it only allows me to basically build and decompile. So you can see there. So I'll just delete this file for a sec, because I can actually just go Bicep, and if you go build, you don't need to use that file syntax. So that's basically the demo I wanted to show. Now, if we just go, so I've got a lab here that I've already created. If you go back to this link, so this goes through the same process. So how you actually deploy it, if you're familiar with deploying ARM templates, it's basically the same process. So obviously you need to create a resource group, and then basically you deploy your Bicep file or your JSON file into that resource group. But what we'll do is I've got down here another example, which will show you how to build my lab code. So if you have a look at this, so what I'll do is I'm going to set this password. So password's required for the local admin password for the virtual machine, which I'm already logged into Azure. So you can see there, I'm already logged in. So I'm just going to set that password just to my secret password for now. You basically need this object ID for the key vault creation, because I'm deploying a key vault. And then I'm basically just setting a unique name, which is basically like a customer name or an asset name, which is just going to be called Bicep. And while that's happening, what I'm going to do is create a resource group. So using that unique name. So there you go, just deploying that. So this is what I'll be deploying. The code I've already written here. You can see this little map. It sort of shows you, I guess, what I'm building. But if we go back to this, let's go back to the code. Okay, you can see here. So I've deployed my resource group, which is just bicep-rg-1. So what we're going to do next is we're going to build my Bicep file here. So if we go through my Bicep file, you can see here, I've got parameters. So the parameter is actually the admin password, which is the command I used before. So up here, so I'm going to pass that through. So you can see when you do this, I'm passing through my parameters here. So unique name, my admin password, and the user object ID. So I've defined those parameters up here. Well, up here and here. And then basically I've got a location string, which is going to be the resource group that I pass through and its location. And then I've basically formulated some variables. So you can see here. So let's build this Bicep file if I haven't already. So we're just going to build that and error it out because I didn't put the word file. So I've got to update that example. Obviously I can just go build Bicep build without the dash file or dash file. Yeah, I need to update this example. And then I'm going to run this command. Okay, so you can see here, I've now got a very large main.json file. All the variables. I've actually never written anything like this with JSON before, but it's so much easier now. So I'll definitely be using Bicep more. You can see here, more variables, create the VNet, NSG rules, and everything else. So I'm not going to go through it all. All the code is there. So this line, this will basically be the standard AZ deploy. So I'll basically deploy it in my resource group and then give it a name. And then it's actually going to pass through the main.bicep, but you can replace that with a JSON file as well and pass through these parameters that I already have set, which is the commands I ran above. So let's do that. So while it's doing that, let's go to the portal. And you can see the RG is right there. And if we go to deployments, you can see here it's deploying. Oh, there you go, conflict. Okay, so obviously that's errored out. You can see there, soft delete. It's because I've already run this.
Many months later.
My bicep. Okay, so let's go create a new RG. And I'm going to skip that. And I'm just going to deploy the whole bicep template itself. So let's go in here. But you can see how quick I can actually go deploy code. So there you go. So off we go again. So if we go back here, let's go home, resource groups. Just waiting. Okay, so there we go. So new RG, deployments, as deploying. So I just had to give it a different name, which will hopefully bypass these soft delete issues that I'm having.
6 hours later.
Okay, so if you look at the deployment, you can see that everything was deployed successfully. So if you go back to the RG, you can basically see all the objects. And oh yeah, this little map is basically, if you click on your bicep file, there's basically this little map here. So as you can see, it's a little nifty thing that gets created. And yeah, basically it just shows how everything is linked. Super handy. And obviously, like any other ARM template, the on-screen messages or the log that appears on the screen will actually tell you if things were errored or successful, as well as the deployments in themselves. Okay, so all the code again is all in GitHub. So if you want to go play around and build these resources, it's all there. I've got the instructions, the command sets above, as well as some references that you might find helpful. Basically, version, I think 3 onwards is production ready, is what Microsoft say. So it's now supported. So we just go to Bicep, I think it's -- version. Yep, so we're up to version 4.63, which was, I think, released a month ago. So yeah, that's Azure Bicep. So I look forward to the versions to come. It's definitely going to get better and better. I hope the video helps get you started with Azure Bicep. If you got any questions, post them below. And if you enjoyed it, don't forget, like and subscribe. And there's more videos to come. So I'm signing out. See ya.